The following information is intended for educational purposes only. It is not medical advice. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect those of A Rood Awakening International, nor this broadcaster. Should you choose to implement this information, please do so only with the assistance of a licensed medical professional. Neither the presenter, nor A Rood Awakening International, nor this broadcaster assume any responsibility for any adverse effects or consequences that may result.
Whether you have kids in sports, a busy desk job, or a job on the road, you know that staying healthy is most difficult when you're on the go. Making a pit stop at the gas station for your next meal or running to the drive-thru for breakfast before a full day of meetings sometimes seems like your only option, but it's not. Take it from a guy who's on the road more than he is at home, but he managed to beat all of his health issues by getting healthier on the go. His name is Brad Scott, and he's about to give you a health awakening. Welcome to the Health Awakening. I'm your host, Scott Laird. There are so many health experts out there that it's hard to decide which message is best for you. Then when you do decide to stick to a healthier way of living, it all goes out the window when you're on the go. There are just too many convenience foods that are too easy to get you off track, but it doesn't have to be that way. Today we're talking to Brad Scott. He's a well-known Bible teacher who travels the world to help people fill in the blanks of their Christian faith and understand what that faith was intended to be back in the first century. And speaking of turning back the clock, he has turned back the clock on his own health while he travels. So Brad, welcome to the Health Awakening.
Thank you, Scott. Pleasure to be here.
Well, glad to have you. So what did your health look like when you went on the road before you changed your life? What kind of things would you do? What kind of things would you eat?
Well, you really don't think of it at first. When I first started doing this back in the day, I won't even say how many years ago, I thought, oh, this is going to be a big romantic thing, to see the world and do all this kind of stuff. And then after the first couple of times, you start realizing that you can't. Your stamina starts to go. You end up getting sick, and you begin to think, well, I'm just catching things from other people. And I realized after a time that if I was healthy, then it wouldn't matter what the other people had. Okay, even on the planes, you're in this small tube, with people flying all over the place. And so I realized that just what you just said, that being on the road, I copped this idea on the road that, it's hard to be healthy on the road. That's a cop-out. Yeah. I mean, if it is hard if you just, saunter around, just stepping in wherever you want to go. But if you plan ahead, you do it right, and you're aware of it, you can be perfectly healthy on the road. It just took a few times for me to realize.
Yeah, you have to try, don't you? You have to get into it. You have to make an effort before and after. So, what kind of diet did you turn to? I know it was something specific. What did you turn to?
Well, because of some things that happened specifically health-wise in a foreign country. Foreign countries, it makes it even more difficult. Don't drink the water, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And it's something that happened in a foreign country, and I realized that I needed to eliminate the main things that fly in your face when you're on the plane. I mean, when you're on an airplane, it's the same thing. It's a chicken thing, it's a beef thing, and it's some kind of tuna with a noodle or whatever. It's the same choices every time. And then you're just pummeled with this stuff on the road. People want to take you out to restaurants, and you would go to Applebee's and have the fried chicken steak or whatever the case may be. And so the first thing I realized is that I need to cut out the things. Actually, at first I thought that I loved the most. Like the breads and the meats and the cheeses and all that kind of stuff. And so I did realize at some time through a lot of ministries, such as you, advice from you as well, the things that you have done, that I decided I was going to do something that was totally against my nature, and that was to go raw.
So this is
to go raw.
This is completely. So you're not doing any fried foods. You're not doing, not going to Applebee's and ordering the same old stuff. So how did you start that? Where did you begin?
Well, I started out by going cold turkey first, and this is on the road. I eat my wife's wonderful, beautiful cooking when I'm home, but I'm mainly talking about the road right now because that's when I find myself getting sick all the time. And it was raw. I mean, raw vegetables only, not eating meat, not just eating this, but there's nothing wrong with. I love raw vegetables anyway, but along with the 12-ounce ribeye and along with the baked potato smothered in the butter and the sour cream, And so basically what I did is I just eliminated the butter, the sour cream, and all those kind of things, and I dramatically began to see my health begin to change.
Okay, and one specific thing you were after to change, and that was high blood pressure.
Yeah, I discovered, obviously, that one of the things they say about high blood pressure is true. Unless it gets extremely high, you don't know that you have it. And so it's because of something that dramatically happened to me in Costa Rica that I was rushed to the hospital, and they wanted to put a bunch of stents in me. And my wife was with me, and she said, "No, you're not going to do that." She kind of saved my life, actually.
Wow.
And that's when I realized they couldn't release me from the hospital because your blood pressure is too high. We can't release you without putting on these blood pressure medicines and all these kind of things. So I had to do it first, you know. Of course, they wouldn't let me out of the hospital. And then I just dramatically started eating raw on the road. And there is a specific thing I began to do.
Oh, okay.
To start that process.
All right, well, we'll get into that in just a minute. So we're talking with Brad Scott about how to eat on the road. And in just a second, we're going to come back and talk about what that diet exactly was, what the connection is to the Bible, and the little something you wouldn't expect from a diet such as this. We'll be right back with more from The Health Awakening.
The nation of Israel began with two brothers, Jacob and Esau. Esau was born first. Jacob was close behind, appearing to have his hand around his brother's heel. From that point, Jacob was nicknamed the supplanter, one who tries to trip up or overthrow, and has always been depicted as a deceiver. But is Jacob really the liar and cheat that he has been made out to be? Or have we misinterpreted a spiritual message in the story of Jacob's hand and Esau's heel?
Esau and Jacob are not going to walk side by side in a partnership on behalf of the family because they're two opposing forces.
Jacob, the hand and the heel, is an exclusive love gift teaching with special guest Bill Cloud. Right now, you can receive this teaching as our thanks for your love gift donation of just $50.
The Jacob, if you will, the Israel that we are to be, has to grow daily. It has to mature daily. It has to increase daily.
Act now to receive this teaching with Bill Cloud for your love gift donation of just $50. Or, with a love gift of $100 or more, we'll send you the teaching and this praise and worship CD by Andrew Hodkinson. Plus, a stunning miniature replica of a clay pot found in the caves of the Israeli desert, containing the Dead Sea Scrolls, a tribute to the family of Jacob, Israel, who were entrusted to guard and protect the Word of God.
Maybe the Bible is suggesting to us here that the reason he was called Yaakov was because his hand was on his brother's heel. Now why?
Make your love gift donation now. $50, $100 or more to receive these special gifts. Jacob, the Hand and the Heel collection, available only in March. Call or visit our website to make your love gift donation now.
Welcome back to The Health Awakening. Before the break, we were talking with our guest, Brad Scott, about eating raw on the road. Not as difficult as you might think. And just before the break, Brad, you were talking about a secret weapon you had that is not really part of the raw food diet, but it helped with your blood pressure. What was it?
Well, believe it or not, I pretty much solved it by every night before I go to bed, I have a nice, healthy glass of red wine.
Really?
Yep.
Okay, and this, how did this coincide with your blood pressure meds?
Well, I can tell you this. You know how you see these ads on TV or on the internet about take this or buy this or get this chemical or do this and it'll drop your blood pressure 9 points and things like that. Now, people who have a real problem with blood pressure would belly laugh at that. 9 points? That's nothing. But when you really have a problem with blood pressure, like I was having, where you'd be like 190, 195 over 105, numbers like that, I found that, well, it's actually two things, but the main thing we're talking about right now is the wine part of it. I combine it with actually something called whole tones or something with music. But the main thing is the red wine. And I found that I can go to bed, or I can start to go to bed with a 175 over 105. I can drink a nice glass of wine, because I have a little cuff thing that I take with me wherever I go, and I'm taking it all the time. And I can drink that glass of wine, and when I'm ready for bed, it's down to 116 over 65.
Interesting.
Now that's numbers, okay? I mean, it certainly works for me. And then I just listen to something that's very calming on the headphones, and my blood pressure just drops dramatically.
You know, there's all kinds of research about the music part of that, where kids who listen to the hard music, their blood pressure goes up.
Oh, sure that does.
So there's some science behind that. Now, how do you eat raw on the road?
Okay.
Now, you had mentioned that before, it takes some prep before and after. So if you're going on a plane, for example, where you're going to be stuck in the flying petri dish for a few hours, what are you taking with you, or what are you doing before and after so that you don't have to eat anything while you're on the plane, as you mentioned earlier?
Well, but the before part's easy. I generally have a 3.5 hour drive to the airport. I live about 3 hours from Salt Lake City, and I just don't eat. Okay? I don't stop and go into any of the barbecue places or certainly the fast food joints. But once I get on, you can't go without eating. Once I get on the airplane, I'll generally take some raw nuts, some raw cashews, something like that. I love cashews, but they're perfectly fine when they're raw, and they taste wonderful when they're raw. Most people, it's a totally different taste, but it's wonderful. But the key to the whole thing is don't eat the airplane food. Don't even eat the peanuts on the plane. And then when I land, the very first thing I do is go get my rental car, and I'll drive to a Trader Joe's or someplace like that. And first I go to Walmart and I get a cheap white foam cooler, because I can't take it with me back on the plane. So it's $3 or something, and then I take that to Trader Joe's, and I just start filling it up with everything that I can. I bring a little thing called a bullet with me, and so I buy all these vegetables and fruits and kefir and things like that, and when I get to the hotel room, I pack them around in the ice chest, and when we get to the hotel room, I'm drinking things every day. Perfectly wonderful. I'm completely satisfied. I don't have any desires for anything else, and I keep healthy on the road.
We discovered something as a family when we went to Disney World with the kids. And Disney World food, you'd think, oh gosh, it's the same thing as the airplane. You're trapped in Disney World. You can't bring in your own food. What are you going to do?
Right.
So we decided to just get a little creative with it. We went to one of the burger joints, and they had these the fixin' bars, where you get all your lettuce and tomatoes and things like that. We just forgot about the burger, and we did the fixing bar. Made ourselves a salad out of this, and that's how we did it. And we also gave the kids some green drink before we left for the day, so that charged up their immune system, and a couple of treats here and there. But other than that, you just have to get creative and bring some things with you. It's not hard, is it?
And you just have to work at it. And there may be a lot of people that say, well, I didn't want to work at it. That's too much work. But when you're on the road, that's the sacrifice you have to make. You have to do something about it, Scott, or you will go right down the proverbial toilet very quickly. Most people don't realize that it's my fundamental belief that everybody is designed to eat the food in the area in which they live. That's just one of my fundamental beliefs. So when you're traveling, even though the food may be perfectly wonderful of the people who live in that particular area of the world, when you're all over the place eating things from different countries and different lands, you're going to get sick. I guarantee it, you're going to get sick. And being away from home, whether it's on vacation or whether it's working in ministry, being sick the whole time is not a good thing. It doesn't help your ministry one bit, does it?
Now, you wanted to mention the first thing that you do when you get on the road or get to your destination.
Yeah, that's the first thing I do. Get in my rental car. Go to the
Walmart. Trader Joe's.
Yep. Get the plastic or the styrofoam thing and fill it up with good stuff. And then I get to the hotel and I just take it around with me wherever I go. And when I go out with people, because everybody always wants to take you out to dinner, I will just have a glass of tea. I want a fellowship. You want to schmooze with them. You want a fellowship. But you don't have to sit there and eat all the baked potatoes and all the other stuff with them. And I'll just certainly have a salad or something at the restaurant.
Okay. That's
what you have to do. It's not really a secret so much as this is what you have to do. You just have to work at it, and you can do it. It's not impossible.
Right.
It's not really even that hard.
Really, especially not that hard, because nowadays a lot of the larger chains like Walmart and Trader Joe's have a lot of organic options. There's a lot more variety. They're on the ball because that's what people want.
Yeah, so they're responding.
That's right.
10 years ago, this wouldn't have been true, but now the culture is responding, going, hey, there's a whole lot of people that want to be healthy, so they're starting to provide places, even at convenience stores. 10 years ago, they didn't put half apples and bananas sitting in a little basket next to the register, but you can eat those things now. So they're starting to respond.
Okay, well, when we come back to the Health Awakening, we're going to talk about the biblical connection to diet, and we're going to get into GMOs, which also has a biblical connection. Stay tuned for that on the Health Awakening.
The Chronological Gospels Bible is changing lives all over the world, putting everything the Messiah did in exact chronological order and explaining the behind-the-scenes truth of what the Messiah did, when he did it, and why. The timing of it all means everything. And now, the Chronological Gospels can be easier on your eyes. The larger print edition features 40% larger type, and every page appears exactly the same as the original, so you can follow along with others who have the regular size version. The Chronological Gospels larger print edition also has wider margins to write notes, and the premium quality paper means you can highlight without soaking through. Plus, the larger print edition lies flat, so you can teach without having to hold the book open. The Chronological Gospels larger print edition is a big and beautiful coffee table book, measuring a full 12 inches tall and 9 inches wide. Order now and you'll also get 2 bonus CDs of Michael Rood's audio reading of the introduction section to the Chronological Gospels. Study the Bible with clarity and ease.
I love the size of this book. This is 9 by 12. The paper is perfect because it doesn't bleed through when I write on it. I can mark it up, and I always make notes in all my Bibles. Everything is the same place as it is on the smaller version, and I can just stand back and I can teach from it, and it's the perfect size.
Order the Chronological Gospels larger print edition by phone or online. You'll get 40% larger type than the original and the bonus audio CDs of the introduction, read by Michael Rood. Get the Chronological Gospels Bible larger print edition for just $69.95. Call or visit our website now.
Welcome back to the Health Awakening. We're speaking with Bible teacher Brad Scott. And Brad, we wanted to talk about the Bible, of course, and how it relates to food. Yeah. And as I was writing my second book, which was Escape Root, root being the R-O-O-T. Mm-hmm. You see the plant,
I get it.
the plant connection there. And it was, I realized while I was reading that book was that the very first conversation God had with Adam after he created him was about food. And that's how important it is to the Almighty that we take care of our bodies. And the diet that you are on, or still on, the raw food diet, is what was prescribed for Adam. That's just a very interesting thing.
Exactly. And it's no coincidence that that food is used in the very beginning, because man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word. And the word is in the beginning with God. And so the whole comparison of the food and the bread and things you eat with the word is also right there in the beginning with God. So yeah, he starts out with that very thing. So it's important in his eyes.
I found it very interesting too that he didn't say, go chase down a gazelle and give me a sacrifice right off the bat or anything like that. It was all eat what grows from the ground, period.
Yeah.
And strangely enough, if we're looking at our lives in terms of health and faith and everything else, we're always trying to get better. We're always trying to get the next step up. And to do that, we seem to be going backwards in the Bible. It's almost like we want to get back to the Garden of Eden. We want where things were perfect.
Sure.
And we look at, well, what diet were they eating in the Garden of Adam and Eve? It was the raw food diet. And when we see people go back to this diet, all kinds of ailments reverse like they did for you.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like the Constitution, original intent. You know, what was the original intent of the fathers? What was the original intent of God in the first place? And that's what we see in the opening chapters of Genesis, is this is how we designed it to be in the world that he designed it to be. And it's important to see that once again, he relates the things you put in your mouth with the word that's going in your mouth. And so that's why part of what this whole restoration thing is all about. Because the reality is the Father's constantly trying to restore us, because what he's essentially saying is, I did it right in the first place.
Right. And speaking of which, so everything was created by his word. Right? When God spoke, it was. Right. That's just the way we find in the Bible. Right. And so when you and I were talking about the first book I wrote called growing concern about GMOs. You had mentioned something interesting about how when we hybridize, that's something different,
right, that's
but when we
something
genetically modify a food, we are actually changing God's word.
That's right. That's right.
Explain
Yeah,
that.
well, we're changing the genome. We're changing the structure. The Word of God is designed exactly like our DNA. Everything's designed the same way. It's a certain DNA genome structure in which she has a certain amount of letters in groups of 3 in a particular order. And when they were maintained that way, then you have the same order over and over and over. It's a cyclical kind of thing. When someone comes in and mutates a part of that genome, and then it creates a mutation, and then the mutation multiplies after itself, and next thing you know, the end is totally different from the beginning. So the whole idea of the GMO thing is, if it's true, this is one of the axioms I live by. If something is from God and it's important, it's all the time, it's everywhere, the pattern never changes. And so therefore, when we get into the most important parable, for example, in the New Testament, the one that Yeshua said, "Know ye not this parable, how then you know all parables?" The whole idea is mixing the tares among the wheat. The whole idea of mixing is what causes the chaos in the world. And so getting back to that pureness of the way he designed it.
And we see that all over the Bible, where mixing, I think you actually quoted it in my book, was mixing is rarely a good thing. Where you've got the, in Revelation, we're talking about the hot and the cold, where if you're lukewarm, I'm going to spew you out of my mouth. Right. Or the linen and the
wool and the linen.
The wool and the linen.
And the linen, yeah.
What does that do to a garment if we do that?
Weakens it. Okay. Weakens the structure of it. You've heard the weakest link in the chain. You probably heard all those kind of cliches. And that's what mixing does. It weakens the structure. And that's why the Bible uses the concept of curses and all that kind of. Most of the Hebrew words for curses, there's different ones. Just because you read the English word curse doesn't mean it's the same word. All have the etymological background of weakening something. And the Father wants us to be strong, okay, and not weak. And so this is what happens when you begin to mix things. Huh. And we've done it in this country for a long time. Do you know in 1920 there were 100 million people in the United States? 37 million were farmers. 1 out of 3 people were farmers. It was 21% of our national revenue. 2012, less than 2 million farmers, 1% of our national revenue. We're losing the idea of planting a seed, harvesting it, and eating the fruit. It's all gone. We're all going to Publix and McDonald's now.
Yeah, and I think people are getting sick of that, and that's where we're getting organics are becoming so popular, and thankfully they're coming down in price because of that too. Yeah. So that's always a good thing. Now, how would you suggest that someone gets started in what you did? Like, what's the first step you took? You mentioned already that you went to the Applebee's and you just didn't do the sour cream and the butter on the potato, but what are some other things that you would suggest for someone who's traveling and wants to start this?
I would say, and you take this how you want to, I would say get yourself a good book, first of all. Get yourself some understanding and a good book on nutrition. Don't try to go out there and just wing it on your own. I learned a lot of things from my wife, quite frankly, because of my busyness, of all the things I'm doing. I relied on my wife, Carol, to know all these things. And so she's telling me these things. And she was my book, I guess, actually, at first, you know, because I'm dumb. I just read a label and I don't know what half of the stuff is. And she knows what all those fancy terms are. And so either have a good wife or find yourself a good book from someone you trust. And it's always the good book. It always boils down to the good book.
Well, you know, we've had lots of folks like that on this show, where there's Dr. David Brownstein, Dr. Michael Greger, Dr. David Jockers. That's why we have this show, is to show people, separate the wheat from the tares, to use a phrase you used earlier, because there's so much out there. It's hard to know what's right, and there's so many theories out there, but we try to have the guys on this show that have a lot of good science behind them. So.
If good health was just a matter of standalone good health, that'd be a whole different thing. But when your health is bad, especially on your road, it affects your whole ministry. It affects your ability to communicate with people effectively. It's, you know, the cliche still stands.
And your life when you get home with your family too.
That's right. Absolutely.
Goodness. Okay. Well, we'll be right back with more from the Health Awakening with our guest, Brad Scott. Stay tuned.
In the story of Jacob and Esau, Jacob is holding his brother's heel at birth. But why? Some say it was to trip up Esau and that Jacob was a deceiver. But is Jacob really the liar and cheat that he has been made out to be?
Jacob's hand was on his brother's heel, not to supplant, but Jacob's hand was on his brother's heel to prevent his brother's heel from coming down on the top of his head.
Jacob, the Hand and the Heel, is an exclusive love gift teaching with special guest Bill Cloud. Yours with a love gift donation of just $50. Or with a love gift donation of $100 or more, we'll send you the teaching plus a worship CD by Andrew Hodkinson and a stunning miniature replica of a clay pot containing the Dead Sea Scrolls. Call or visit our website now to make your love gift donation to receive Jacob, the Hand and the Heel. Hurry, offer ends March 31st. Every Passover, we commemorate the Last Supper. But the Last Supper is just the beginning. A Rood Awakening International presents Passover 2018 live in Charlotte, North Carolina. Enjoy an amazing Passover feast and learn what lies ahead in biblical prophecy all weekend long from some of the most well-known teachers of the end times. Keynote speaker, Perry Stone. Biblical prophecy and Islam expert, Joel Richardson. From Shorsheen Ministries, Bill Cloud. From Love for Yeshua Ministries, Chris Knight. And your host, the biblical chronologist, Michael Rood. Enjoy praise and worship music, children's ministry, and youth ministry. Plus, take part in the mikvah, the ancient biblical version of baptism, and the heartfelt family ceremony dating back to the Israelites, the redemption of the firstborn. You'll even learn how to make unleavened bread like they do in the Middle East. One ticket gives you all of this, all weekend long. Passover, live in Charlotte, North Carolina. Get tickets now at PassoverCharlotte.com.
Welcome back to the Health Awakening. Well, we've been talking about how to eat on the road successfully and even do it with something as complicated as it sounds, the raw food diet. It's not as complicated as it seems. And Brad, you've a living example of that.
I hope so.
And well, we can see more of what you can offer at your website, of course, wildbranch.org. And you wanted to add something before we left here.
Yeah, first of all, you can contact me at brad@wildbranch.org. And after 20 some odd years of doing this, I've learned a thing or two. And so I would encourage people to email me and ask questions. I can tell you not just the things to do, but sometimes more importantly, the things not to do while you're on the road.
Okay.
And because I got a few years experience of doing these things, and I think it'd be a great help.
All right, a few years experience of messing up and learning.
That's right,
mistakes.
that's right. That's an important thing. It's called wisdom.
Wisdom indeed. Well, our guest has been the wise Brad Scott. You can catch the replay of this episode and see our complete show schedule at healthawakening.tv. For more information about Brad, you can go to wildbranch.org, as he said, and we'll see you next time for another Health Awakening. See you then. Thank you for joining us today on the Health Awakening. You can catch the replay of this episode and see our complete show schedule at healthawakening.tv. For more information about our guests today and all they have to offer, please visit their website on the bottom of your screen. And please remember, the information you saw today is for educational purposes only. It is not medical advice, nor do the views expressed reflect those of this broadcaster. Should you choose to implement this information, please do so only with the assistance of a licensed medical professional. Neither the presenter nor this broadcaster assume any responsibility for any adverse effects or consequences that may result. Thank you.